Assalamu alaikum. This is the presentation of Group Number 4 on fictional case study questions. I am Irfan Niaz Fardin and I will try to present on the introduction and situation analysis of the study. The case reflects on waste management at Chittagong Port and MARPOL violations based on the incident of the oil tanker that took place in June 2024. The incident involving MT Eastern Glory highlights critical weaknesses in Chittagong Port's waste management system and compliance culture. Key problems include illegal oily waste discharge, manipulation of pollution prevention equipment, falsified oil record book entries, and inadequate reception facilities at the port. The crew's claim of pressure to reduce delays further indicates systematic issues in operational practices and regulatory enforcement. Collectively, these failures expose gaps in MARPOL implementation, monitoring capacity, and the overall effectiveness of pollution control mechanisms at the port. Chittagong Port is Bangladesh's largest and busiest seaport, handling the majority of the country's maritime trade and serving as a critical regional logistics hub. As a signatory to the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, Bangladesh is obligated to enforce provisions, particularly Annex 1, which prohibits the discharge of oily mixtures within port limits and mandates proper documentations, functioning pollution control equipment, and access to adequate reception facilities. Despite this regulatory framework, operational pressure, congestion, and infrastructure limitations create challenges for full compliance at the Chittagong port. In June 2024, the oil tanker MT Eastern Glory arrived from the Middle East, carrying refined petroleum products. Port authorities detected traces of oil in surrounding waters, later verified through satellite imagery to have been discharged from the vessel while at anchorage. Investigation revealed discrepancies in the oil record book, a bypassed oily water separator, and indicators of intentional disposal of oily residues. These findings constituted direct violations of MARPOL Annex 1, leading to penalties for illegal discharge and falsification of documentation. Chittagong Port faces long-standing shortcomings in its waste reception and pollution control systems, limited availability of port reception facilities, insufficient capacity to handle oily residues and garbage, and delays in clearance procedures often compel ships to resort to non-compliant practices. High vessel congestion and operational pressure contribute to a culture where efficiency sometimes takes precedence over environmental compliance. Weak enforcement, inadequate monitoring technologies, and coordination gaps among port agencies further undermine MARPOL implementation. The problems diagnosed in the MT Eastern Glory case was illegal discharge, equipment manipulation, inaccurate records, and managerial pressure reflect systematic failures in port waste management infrastructure and regulatory enforcement. This incident underscores the broader vulnerabilities at Chittagong Port in upholding MARPOL standards and preventing marine pollution. Thank you very much for your time and patience.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today I will be presenting a root cause analysis of shipboard non-compliance, focusing on the Eastern Glory oil spill incident at Chittagong Port. This presentation examines how technical failures, organizational pressures, port infrastructure limitations, and regulatory weakness collectively contributed to an environmental violation. The objective of this analysis is not only to understand what went wrong, but also to identify systematic failures and propose lessons for improving maritime environmental compliance. This case centers on the MT Eastern Glory, a tanker implicated in an oil spill discovered in June 2024 at the Chittagong anchorage. Port inspectors traced an oil slick back to the vessel and, upon inspection, found inconsistent oil record book entries and evidence that the oily water separator had been deliberately bypassed. Crew testimony further revealed that shore management encouraged avoiding delays caused by waiting for waste reception clearance. These findings indicate a chain of failures across technical, operational, and industrial levels. Therefore, a comprehensive root cause analysis is required to understand the deeper drivers behind this non-compliance. The first major category of failure occurred on board the vessel itself. Inspectors discovered that the oily water separator, which is a critical pollution prevention device under MARPOL Annex 1, had been tampered with using a hidden bypass pipe. This allowed oily bilge water to be discharged directly into the sea without treatment. In addition, the oily water book was falsified to conceal these illegal discharges. This combination of technical manipulation and procedural deception demonstrates deliberate non-compliance rather than accidental failure. Such actions reflect a serious breakdown in onboard safety culture and technical integrity, prioritizing operational convenience over environmental responsibility. The second key issue relates to port side infrastructure constraints. Chittagong Port has extremely limited capacity to handle ship-generated oily waste, with only a single oily waste reception barge capable of serving 1 to 2 ships per day. This is clearly insufficient given the volume of traffic and typical daily bilge production of tankers. As a result, compliant vessels face long waiting times, congestion, and operational delays. This shortage creates perverse incentives where ships may view illegal discharge as less costly than waiting for proper disposal. In the Eastern Glory case, inadequate port reception facilities directly contributed to the decision to bypass waste management regulations. Beyond equipment and infrastructure, organizational culture played a decisive role. Crew members indicated that shore-based management pressured them to minimize port time and avoid delays, even if this meant bypassing environmental procedures. This reflects a misalignment of incentives, where financial considerations such as demurrage costs and schedule adherence were prioritized over compliance with MARPOL regulations. When such pressures are normalized, crews may perceive environmental rules as secondary or optional. The incident therefore illustrates how weak safety culture and economic pressures can systematically erode compliance, even when regulations are well established. Regulatory and enforcement weakness. The incident also exposed weaknesses in regulatory oversight and enforcement mechanisms. Enforcement appears to have been largely reactive, as the violation was only detected after satellite imagery revealed an oil slick. Routine inspections and well record book audits failed to identify the bypass earlier. Furthermore, penalties for violations may be too low to serve as effective deterrents, especially when compared to the financial losses associated with port delays. Fragmented authority among port authorities, shipping departments, and environmental agencies further weakens enforcement. This regulatory environment risks signaling that maritime pollution is a low-risk offense. Root cause analysis. When these factors are analyzed together using a root cause or fishbone framework, it becomes clear that no single failure caused the incident. The immediate cause was the oily water separator bypass and falsified records. However, these actions were enabled by port congestion, organizational pressure to reduce delays, and insufficient regulatory oversight. Thus, the true root causes lie deeper in systematic issues such as inadequate infrastructure investment, poor alignment of incentives, and fragmented governance. Addressing only the technical failure would be insufficient without tackling these underlying drivers. Key insights and recommendations. Several key insights emerge from this analysis. First, shipboard equipment and procedures must be strengthened through improved safeguard, transparent documentation, and stricter audits. Second, ports must invest in adequate and functional reception facilities to eliminate congestion and remove incentives for illegal discharge. Third, organizational incentives must be realigned so that environmental compliance is prioritized over operational speed. Finally, regulatory authorities must strengthen inspections, impose meaningful penalties, and improve interagency coordination to ensure deterrence. In conclusion, the Eastern Glory incident demonstrates that sustainable maritime operations require a multifaceted approach. Environmental compliance cannot rely solely on shipboard technology or crew discipline. It depends equally on supportive port infrastructure, responsible organizational culture, and effective regulatory enforcement. By addressing these root causes collectively, the maritime industry can move toward a stronger culture of environmental responsibility and prevent similar incidents in the future. Thank you, everyone, for your attention.
Greetings everyone. Today we delve into a critical issue impacting maritime environmental compliances, the deficiencies in oily waste and garbage reception facilities in ports. Our analysis centers on understanding how these shortcomings directly undermine MARPOL Convention compliance, focusing on a specific case study to illustrate the profound consequences. Our presentation begins by highlighting the pervasive problem of inadequate port reception facilities for oil waste and garbage. This isn't merely an administrative oversight. It represents a significant challenge to international MARPOL framework designed to prevent marine pollution. We evaluated the systematic deficiencies and their direct measurable impact on compliance, providing a clear picture of the stakes involved. The core of our investigation uncovered severe critical deficiencies. Firstly, facilities were found to be either unavailable or possess severely limited capacity, consistently failing to meet mandatory requirements. This forced vessels to retain excess waste on board, inadvertently creating incentives for illegal discharges. Secondly, port congestion played a significant role. Crews frequently bypassed reception services due to excessive waiting times, directly violating MARPOL Annex 5, Regulation 7, which mandates discharge quote-unquote without undue delay. Lastly, the limited handling capacity extended across both Annex 1 and Annex 5 waste streams, indicating systematic failure to support comprehensive compliance. A deeper dive into the Chittagong Port Authority operational metrics reveals a stark disparity between demand and available capacity. Our data shows an average service waiting time of 8 hours, significantly exceeding the acceptable target of less than 4 hours. This operational inefficiency directly justifies the crew's decision to bypass services. Furthermore, the port reception facility's storage capacity was found to be only 50% of the peak monthly vessel demand, almost guaranteeing systematic failure during high traffic periods and underscoring the urgent need for infrastructure upgrades. Focusing on MARPOL Annex 1, we identified specific issues related to oily waste. The lack of sufficient port reception facilities often led to vessel crews bypassing their oil water separators and using internal piping systems, a measure driven by necessity but leading to law-evading practices. The overall accommodation for oily residues virtually non-existent, resulting in extreme congestion and severely limited capacity for proper disposal. This environment created operational delays where crews were implicitly and sometimes explicitly advised to discharge at sea due to heavy port congestion, poor planning, and bureaucratic red tape. Furthermore, irregularities found in the oil record books of vessels strongly implied an acknowledgement of PRF deficits and consequently involvement in illegal discharges. Similar challenges plagued garbage reception under MARPOL Annex 5. The limited capacity manifested an insufficient bins, a scarcity of collection trucks, and inadequately processing centers to handle the adverse types of volumes of garbage generated by vessels. These physical limitations were compounded by operational concerns, including extended response times from reception services and general unreliability. Such conditions inevitably tempted crews to illegally discharge excess garbage into the sea, viewing it as the only viable option to avoid costly delays and operational burdens. The incident involving the empty Eastern Glory serves as a stark illustration of how these insufficient port facilities operational strains directly contribute to MARPOL Annex 1 and 5 violations. The core problems stem from two areas. First, infrastructural capacity, characterized by a couple lack of redundancy and minuscule capacity at Chittagong Port, leading to a systematic failure under normal operating conditions. Second, significant operational challenges, including persistent port congestion, the low priority given to waste reception services, and poor coordination among stakeholders collectively exacerbate the issues, creating an environment ripe for non-compliance. Crucially, the absence of viable alternatives directly fostered illegal activities. The lack of adequate port reception facilities compelled crews to illegally discharge oily waste to avoid prohibitive delays and associated costs. Similarly, the diminished and unreliable services of garbage disposal actively encouraged illegal discharges as a means to save both time and money. This creates a deeply concerning situation where the ports fail to meet its obligations under MARPOL Regulations 7 and 8, inadvertently creates a perverse legal incentive for illegal actions, directly contributing to marine pollution rather than preventing it. To conclude our analysis, a robust evaluation of Chittagong Port Authority's performance and requires specific data points. We highlighted the key metrics such as a total of 1,000 vessel calls per month, representing the baseline demand for reception services. The PRF tankage capacity stands at a mere 500 cubic meter of oily waste discharge, a physical infrastructure limit that clearly falls short. The average waiting time for reception service is 8 hours, far exceeding the acceptable benchmark of 2 hours. Finally, the critical indicator of 5 refused service requests in the past month directly signals the recurring capacity failures within the system. These metrics collectively paint a picture of the challenges and underscore the urgent need for intervention and improvement. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I will be presenting on regulatory and enforcement challenges at Chittagong Port and try to show how existing inspection regimes, penalties and coordination among different agencies affect enforcement. In this presentation, I will briefly discuss the key regulatory and enforcement weaknesses highlighted by the MT Eastern Glory incident, explain the major challenges that allow illegal well discharge to continue, and finally outline practical recommendations to strengthen enforcement and ensure better environmental compliances. There are 4 major enforcement challenges at Chittagong Port. These include weak inspections, limited penalties, coordination gaps, and systemic loopholes. Together, these issues create an environment where non-compliance becomes easier and less risky for ship operators. Weaknesses in inspection activities. Firstly, inspection activities are weak due to limited capacity and inconsistent enforcement. There are shortages of trained port state control officers, which results in fewer inspections, especially for high-risk vessels like oil tankers. As a result, many violations go undetected during routine port calls. Another major weakness is the lack of specialized engineering-based inspections. Techniques such as OWS functionality testing, pipeline tracing, and bilge sampling are not used consistently. Without these methods, concealed piping and tempered well water separator systems remain hidden, allowing illegal discharge to continue. Monitoring at Chittagong port is mostly reactive than proactive. Illegal discharges are usually detected only when they are visible or reported. Additionally, international best practices such as prioritizing high-risk vessels recommended by the Tokyo and Paris MOUs are not fully implemented, reducing monitoring activity effectiveness. Limitations in penalties and prosecution. The penalty system also has serious limitations. Current fines are too low to act as a deterrent, making illegal discharge a calculated business decision. Legal delays, lack of environmental expertise, and weak forensic evidence further reduce the likelihood of successful MARPOL prosecutions. Inter-agency coordination challenges. Multiple agencies including the Chittagong Port Authority, Department of Environment, Department of Shipping and Coast Guard share responsibility. However, there is no clear lead agency, resulting in fragmented enforcement. Poor communication, disconnected data systems, and the absence of joint response protocols slow down investigations and evidence collection. Several structural and operational loopholes make illegal well discharge easier and less risky for ship operators. OWS bypass systems are difficult to detect without technical inspections. Paper-based well record books are vulnerable to manipulation. Limited port reception facilities, commercial pressure to avoid delays, and low detection probability further encourage non-compliance. To effectively address these challenges, a comprehensive enforcement reform strategy is required. First, port state control capabilities must be strengthened. This includes increasing the number of trained port state control officers and providing specialized training on oily water separator systems, pipeline tracing, and forensic inspection techniques. Second, monitoring systems should be digitalized. Integrating satellite surveillance, AIS tracking, and electronic well record books would allow authorities to detect suspicious discharge patterns and reduce reliance on manual inspections. Third, penalty structures need to be reformed. Fines should be proportionate to both the environmental damage and the economic benefit gained from illegal discharge, ensuring that non-compliance is no longer profitable. Fourth, establishing a joint inter-agency task force is essential. A unified body involving Chittagong Port Authority, Department of Environment, Department of Shipping and Coast Guard would improve accountability, intelligence sharing and rapid response. Finally, transparency and port reception facility access must be improved. Publishing PRF availability and introducing digital waste booking systems would encourage ships to dispose of waste legally and reduce incentives for illegal discharge. By implementing these comprehensive reforms, Chittagong Port can significantly enhance its ability to combat marine pollution. A robust enforcement framework combined with technological integration and inter-agency collaboration is essential for protecting our marine ecosystems and ensuring sustainable maritime trade. These changes will not only improve compliance but also strengthen Bangladesh's international standing in environmental stewardship. That's bring me to end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Good evening, everyone. Today, I would like to present my case study on strategic recommendations to prevent MARPL Annex 1 violations in Chittagong Port, which includes its key measures, roles, pros, and cons. My name is Abu Talha Muhammad Wasi from the Department of Port and Shipping Management from Bangladesh Maritime University. MARPL Annex 1 focuses on the prevention of oil pollution from ships, which remains one of the most serious environmental threats to the marine ecosystem. Despite having international regulations in place, violations still occur, especially in busy ports of developing countries like the Chittagong Port. These violations usually result from poor waste management, weak monitoring, lack of coordination between ships and ports, and sometimes deliberate misconduct. Therefore, strategic recommendations are essential, not just to punish violations, but to prevent them systematically. In this presentation, I will discuss 4 strategic solutions, clearly explaining their roles, responsibilities, advantages, and limitations, with reference to real enforcement challenges faced at Chittagong Port. The 4 key strategic recommendations are: number 1, digital waste tracking system; number 2, automation and tamper-proofing of oily water separators; number 3, independent third-party audits; and number 4, strengthening port-ship coordination and scheduling. Together, these measures address technical, operational, and governance-related weaknesses. First, let me talk about digital waste tracking systems, particularly electronic oil record books or EORBs, combined with digital waste manifests. Traditionally, ships maintain paper-based oil record books, which are easy to manipulate in several enforcement cases, including the MT Eastern Glory incident. False records were used to hide illegal discharges. By shifting to electronic ORBs, every step of oil waste management, from generation to disposal, is digitally recorded and time-stamped. When these systems are connected with port reception facility records, authorities can cross-check ship data with port data, making falsification extremely difficult. Responsibilities in digital waste tracking system includes: ship owners install EORBs and train crews log all waste operations accurately, post authority and PRFs, verify and cross-check data, regulators approve system and enforce compliance. Advantages include real-time verification, transparent records, data-driven inspections, and better coordination among stakeholders. However, there are challenges such as high initial costs, the need for regulatory support, cybersecurity risks, and difficulties for smaller vessels. Despite these issues, digital tracking significantly raises the cost of non-compliance. The second strategy is automation and tamper-proofing of oily water separators, commonly known as OWS. Under MARPL Annex 1, ships may only discharge oil content below 15 parts per million. However, enforcement agencies have repeatedly found hidden bypass pipes and manipulated sensors. Automated systems include oil content monitors, flow sensors, sealed pipelines, alarms, and data loggers. These systems ensure that every discharge is monitored and recorded, not manually but automatically. Tamper-proofing makes it physically difficult to bypass the system, directly addressing technical violations. Now, if you talk about the responsibilities, we can see the ship owners retrofit and maintain systems. Crew operators operate correctly and report faults. The class societies certify installations and authorities inspect data and enforce penalties. The key benefits are strong deterrence, reliable evidence, and improved onboard environmental culture. However, retrofitting older ships is costly. Maintenance failures can occur, and crew members require technical training. Additionally, international standardization across flag states is essential. Now, the third recommendation is independent third-party audits for both ships and port reception facilities. Routing inspections often suffer from conflicts of interest or predictability. Independent auditors certified and regulated bring neutral oversight. These audits assess waste handling procedures, record accuracy, PRF adequacy, compliance with MARPOL and national regulations, and others. The responsibilities are divided as follows. Ship owners and shipping companies facilitate audits and promptly address identified non-compliances. CPA or the Chittagong Port Authority mandate and support independent audits of port reception facilities. Independent audit organizations independently assess compliance with MARPOL and national requirements. And finally, regulatory authorities enforce regulations using audit findings and oversee auditor credibility. Advantages include higher accountability, detection of repeated non-compliance patterns, continuous improvement, and improved international reputation on the port. On the downside, audits increase operational cost, poorly regulated auditors may create conflicts of interest, and excessive inspections can lead to audit fatigue. Still, when properly regulated, audits act as powerful compliance mechanism. The final recommendation focuses on strengthening port-ship coordination and scheduling. Many violations occur when ships wait offshore for long periods due to poor waste service planning. Under pressure, some ships may illegally discharge wastes at sea. The solution emphasizes accurate pre-arrival waste notifications, online booking system for waste disposal, transparent and predictable services charges, and others. Now, if we talk about the responsibilities include ship owners and shipmasters provide accurate pre-arrival waste information, follow disposal routes. CPA coordinate waste services and enforce notification requirements. PRF operators ensure capacity and timely waste collection. Regulatory authorities monitor compliance and enforce penalties. The benefits are reduced waiting times, less incentive for illegal dumping, smoother port operations, and improved trusts. However, challenges include institutional resistance, dependency on digital infrastructure, and limitations of PRF capacity. To conclude, preventing MARPOL Annex 1 violations at Chittagong Port requires an integrated approach. No single solution is sufficient on its own, but when digital tracking, technical safeguards, and independent oversight and effective coordination are implemented together, they create a strong and sustainable compliance framework. Although these strategies involve costs and operational challenges, the long-term benefits include environmental protection, legal compliance, and enhanced port reputation are outweighed. By adopting these strategic measures, Chittagong Port can position itself as an environmentally responsible maritime hub aligned with international standards. These are the reference citations I used and analyzed for making this content. Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have for me. Thank you.
Good day everyone, my name is Birta Mohanto, ID 27. Today I will present the solution to improve waste management, the MT Eastern Glory case. Ships generate oil waste during operations and improper disposal can seriously harm the marine environment. To control this, MARPOL regulations require ships to maintain an oil record book. However, traditional paper-based oil record book systems have limitations. Therefore, this case study proposes a digital oil record book as a more effective and transparent solution, especially for port like Chittagong Port. The current waste management system has several problems. One major issue is the falsification of the oil record book, as manual records can be altered. Another issue is the illegal bypass of the oily water separator, which leads to direct discharge of oily waste into the sea. There is also a lack of proper tracking, making it difficult for authorities to monitor waste disposal accurately. These issues cause non compliance with MARPOL regulations, create environmental pollution, and result in financial penalties and reputational damage for shipping companies. To solve these problems, a digital waste tracking system is proposed. The oil record book replaces the traditional paper oil record book with an electronic system. It allows real time monitoring of waste generator and disposal, reducing chances of manipulation. The system also connects with port waste reception facilities, ensuring that waste disposal data is verified by both the ship and the port. This improves transparency, strengthens the compliance, and reduces legal and environmental risk. The oil record book system is practical and easy to implement. It is compatible with international maritime regulations and supports to the global move toward digital shipping systems. In the long run, it requires long infrastructure and maintenance cost. By preventing illegal discharge and reducing paperwork, e-oil record book saves time and money. It also helps avoid fines, detentions, and operational delays. Overall, it brings long term financial and operational benefits to both shipping companies and port authorities. In conclusion, the oil record book system greatly improves environmental protection and MARPOL compliance. It is scalable, efficient, and suitable for modern maritime operations. Its implementation can enhance Chittagong Port's international reputation and promote sustainable shipping practices. The oil record book is the best solution because it addressed both technical and documentation problem and aligns with MARPOL Annex 1 and Annex 5 regulations. Thanks for your patience.
Assalamu alaikum. Today, I will briefly talk about an implementation plan to improve MARPOL compliance at Chittagong Port, especially for oil and garbage pollution from ship. Chittagong Port is the main seaport of Bangladesh. Many ships visit this port every day. Because of this, there is a high risk of marine pollution. If MARPOL rules are not properly followed, this plan aims to reduce pollution, improve monitoring, and protect the marine environment. In the first stage, a MARPOL task force will be formed with the Port Authority, Department of Shipping, Department of Environment, Coast Guard, and Seaport Control Board. Ship inspection will be increased, especially for oil tankers. Important documents like the oil record book will be checked, and surprise inspection will be done at an anchor areas. Training program will be arranged to raise awareness among port officials and shipping agents. Existing waste reception facilities will be checked and temporary waste contracts will be used if needed. In the next stage, port reception facilities will be improved so ships can safely dispose of oily waste and garbage at any time. A digital waste tracking system will be introduced to record waste disposal and ship data. Training will be provided to inspectors and port staff, and private waste companies will be monitored regularly. In the final stage, national laws will be updated to match MARPOL rules. Repeat offenders will receive stronger penalties. Modern technology like satellite monitoring and AIS tracking will be used to detect illegal waste discharge. A green port and green shipping program will be reward ship that follow environmental rules. In the conclusion, this plan will help reduce marine pollution, improve cooperation between agencies, and increase the international reputation of Chittagong Port. Thank you for your attention.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Maisha Salwa Haq presenting the case study context and the key issues in this case study. This case study mainly focuses on the MT Eastern Glory incident at Chittagong Port in June 2024. The vessel illegally discharged oily wastewater port limits. Investigations confirmed that the oily water separator was deliberately bypassed and oil record book entries were falsified, resulting in a clear violation of MARPOL Annex 1. However, the problem was not limited to the ship alone. On the port side, inadequate port reception facilities, severe congestion, weak inspections, and reactive enforcement created an environment where proper waste disposal became difficult. This slide highlights how both shipboard failures and port governance issues contributed to the incident. This slide explains why MARPOL compliance failed. First, there were major infrastructure gaps, including limited capacity of port reception facilities and long waiting times with no backup systems. Second, strong human and economic pressure pushed crews to reduce delays where the cost of waiting was higher than the risk of fines. Finally, the regulatory weaknesses played a key role. Limited port state control inspection, reliance on paper-based oil record books, and low deterrence reduced the effectiveness of enforcement. Together, these factors led to systematic non-compliance rather than an isolated mistakes. Now, conclusion and the way forwards. In conclusion, this case demonstrates that the violation was systematic, not accidental. Port side limitations directly enabled the ship's illegal actions, showing the MARPOL compliance requires strong operational support, not just regulations. The way forward includes introducing digital waste tracking systems such as electronic oil record books, strengthening port reception facilities, and enhancing inspection and enforcement capacity. The final message is clear: prevention is better than reaction. By prioritizing environmental protection and building a sustainable compliance system, Chittagong Port can improve its credibility and protect the marine environment. Thank you.